Not just the words, but the weight behind them, the silence between each letter, the part of you that didn't know if anyone would actually stop and feel it. And for a moment, everything slowed down because sometimes a single comment isn't just a thought, it's a piece of someone's heart quietly asking to be understood. And maybe you didn't expect anyone to notice, but I did. It didn't arrive loudly, it didn't demand attention. It just appeared quietly, like something that wasn't sure it deserved to be seen. And maybe that's what made me stop. Because in a world full of noise, the quiet things are the ones that usually carry the most truth. There was something in it, not just words, not just a sentence thrown into the endless stream of people speaking and forgetting. It felt like a pause, like you hesitated before hitting send, like you questioned whether it even mattered, and maybe you thought it would disappear like everything else does, unnoticed, unread, unimportant. But I saw it, and I don't think you understand how rare that is anymore to actually be seen, not scrolled past, not judged in a second, not reduced to a username or a moment, just seen fully, honestly, without pretending. Because behind every comment, there's a person, someone who felt something strong enough to stop, to type, to share. And people don't do that unless there's something real inside them, something that refuses to stay quiet. Maybe your comment was simple. Maybe it didn't try to be poetic or perfect, but it didn't need to be because truth doesn't need decoration. It just needs courage. And even the smallest words can carry the heaviest emotions. I read it once, then again, and then I realized it wasn't just about what you said, it was about what you didn't say. The spaces between your words, the things you held back, the emotions you couldn't fully explain, but still tried to express anyway. That's where the real story was. And I think that's what people miss most of the time. They see the surface, but they don't look deeper. They don't ask why someone wrote what they wrote. They don't wonder what it took for that person to even speak at all. But I did, because I know what it's like to feel like your voice doesn't matter, to wonder if anyone is really listening, to question whether what you feel is even worth sharing. And still, you said something. You reached out, even if it was in the smallest way. That takes more strength than people realize. There's a kind of vulnerability in leaving a comment. It's easy to ignore, easy to dismiss, but it's real. It's a moment where you decide not to stay silent, where you choose to let a part of yourself exist outside your own thoughts. And that matters. Even if no one replies, even if no one replies, even if it feels like it disappears into nothing, because it didn't disappear. I saw it. And for a moment, it connected two strangers in a way that doesn't happen often anymore, not through noise, not through performance, but through something real, something human. And maybe you didn't expect that. Maybe you thought it would just be another passing thing. But sometimes the smallest actions create the deepest impact, not because they're loud, but because they're honest. There's something about honesty that can't be faked. You can feel it immediately. It doesn't try to impress, it doesn't try to be perfect. It just exists raw and unfiltered. That's what your comment felt like. That's what your comment felt like. And I think people are more hungry for that than they realize. Not perfection, not polished words, just something real, something they can recognize, something that reminds them they're not the only ones feeling what they feel because we're all carrying things, things we don't talk about, things we hide behind smiles, behind jokes, behind silence. And sometimes those things slip out in the simplest ways, a sentence, a comment, a few words that don't look like much but mean everything. Maybe your comment was one of those moments. Maybe it was more than you intended. Or maybe it was exactly what you needed to say, even if you didn't know why. But it mattered, not in a loud, dramatic way, not in a way that changes everything instantly, but in a quiet, steady way, the kind that stays with someone longer than they expect. Because being seen, even for a moment, can change something inside you. It reminds you that you exist beyond your own thoughts, that your voice has weight, that your presence, no matter how small it feels, can reach someone. And maybe that's all we're really looking for, not attention, not validation, just a sign that we're not invisible. I think that's why your comment stayed with me. It wasn't trying to be anything more than it was, and that's what made it real. There's a kind of beauty in that, in not trying too hard, in just letting something exist as it is. No filters, no expectations, just truth. And truth has a way of finding the people who need it. Maybe you needed to say it. Maybe I needed to read it. Maybe neither of us understands exactly why that moment happened the way it did, but it did. And that's enough. Because sometimes the most meaningful connections aren't planned, they don't come with explanations or reasons, they just happen quietly, unexpectedly, unexpectedly, like a comment that someone almost didn't write, like a moment that almost didn't matter, but it did. And even if you never think about it again, even if it fades into everything else, just know that it wasn't nothing. It was seen, it was felt, and for a brief moment, it was understood, not in the way loud things stay, not like a song stuck in your head or a voice that refuses to fade. It stayed quietly, like a feeling you can't explain, like something you almost ignore, but somehow can't let go of. I didn't expect that. Most things pass, most words blur together. You scroll, you read, you forget. That's how it works now. Everything is fast, everything is temporary, everything disappears before it even has the chance to mean something, but yours didn't. It slowed everything down. There was something about it that didn't rush. It didn't try to impress. It didn't try to impress. It didn't try to be seen. And maybe that's exactly why it was impossible to ignore. Because real things don't chase attention. They don't need to, they just exist. And somehow they find the people who are meant to notice them. I think you didn't expect anyone to notice. I think a part of you believed it would just fall into the noise like everything else. Just another comment in an endless sea of voices, each one trying to be heard, each one slowly fading into silence. But I heard it, not just the words, not just a meaning. I heard the part of you behind it, the hesitation, the honesty, the moment where you decided to say something instead of nothing. That moment matters more than you think because it's easy to stay silent. It's easy to hold everything inside, to convince yourself that it doesn't matter, that no one is really listening anyway. Silence feels safe. It protects you from being misunderstood, from being ignored, from being seen in ways you're not ready for. But you didn't stay silent. You said something. And even if it felt small, even if it didn't feel important, even if you almost didn't do it, you did. That takes something. It takes courage to exist in a world that doesn't always notice you. It takes strength to speak when you're not sure anyone is listening. It takes something real to share, even a fragment of yourself, without knowing what will happen next. And maybe you don't see it that way. Maybe to you it was just a comment, just a few words, something simple, something ordinary, something easy to forget, but it wasn't because ordinary things don't stay like that. There was a weight to it, a kind of quiet gravity that pulled attention without asking for it, the kind of thing you feel before you understand it, the kind of thing that doesn't explain itself, but doesn't need to I read it again. And I started to think about the person behind it, not the name, not the profile, not the surface, the person, the one who sat there, maybe for a second, maybe for longer, thinking about what to say, wondering if it was worth saying, deciding whether to stay invisible or to leave something behind. And in that moment, you chose to exist. Do you realize how rare that is? Not existing physically, not just being there. I mean, truly existing in a way that reaches beyond yourself, in a way that lets someone else feel you, even if it's just for a second. Most people hide. They hide behind distractions, behind routines, behind carefully constructed versions of themselves. They show what's easy, what's acceptable, what doesn't risk too much. They keep the real parts buried, locked away, where no one can see them. Because being real is risky. It means you can be ignored. It means you can be misunderstood. It means you can give something of yourself and get nothing in return. And that possibility scares people. So they stay quiet, but you didn't, even if it was just for a moment, even if it was just a few words. You stepped out of that silence, and that changes something. Maybe not in the world, maybe not in a way that's obvious or measurable, but in a way that matters, in a way that connects. in a way that reminds someone else that they're not alone in whatever they're feeling, because that's what real words do. They don't just exist, they reach, they move, they find places inside people that they didn't even realize were open. Your comment did that, and I don't think you meant for it to. I don't think you were trying to create some deep moment or leave a lasting impression. I think you were just being honest, just letting something out, just allowing yourself, even briefly, to be seen. And that's enough. More than enough. Because honesty doesn't need intention to matter. It doesn't need to be crafted or perfected. It just needs to be real, and real things have a way of staying long after everything else fades. I kept thinking about it, about how something so small could feel so significant, about how a few words could carry so much without saying everything, about how easy it would have been for me to miss it, and how strange it is that I didn't. It makes you wonder how many moments like that pass us every day. How many people reach out in small, quiet ways, hoping, maybe without even realizing it, that someone will notice? And how often do we just keep moving? It's not intentional. It's not cruel. It's just the way things are now. Everything moves so fast that we forget to stop. We forget to look closer. We forget that behind every word is a person, and behind every person is a story we'll probably never fully understand. But sometimes something breaks through that. Something slows you down just enough to remind you. Your comment was one of those things. It didn't shout, it didn't demand, it didn't try to compete with everything else. It just existed quietly, honestly, and somehow that was enough to make it stand out. There's something powerful about that kind of presence, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that simply is. It's rare because most people are taught to be louder, to be bigger, to be more noticeable, to fight for attention, to chase recognition, to make sure they're not overlooked. But there's another kind of strength, the kind that doesn't chase, the kind that trusts that what's real will be felt by the people who are meant to feel it. That's what your comment felt like, not forced, not exaggerated, just real. And maybe you don't see yourself that way. Maybe you think you're just another voice, just another person in a world full of people. Maybe you think what you say doesn't carry that kind of weight, that kind of meaning, but it does. Not always, not in every moment, but sometimes in ways you'll never fully see or understand. Because the truth is, you don't always get to know the impact you have. You don't always see the way your words land in someone else's mind, the way they stay, the way they shift something small but important. Sometimes it just happens quietly like this, and maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough to know that something you said didn't disappear, that it was received, that it was felt, that it mattered in a way that doesn't need to be explained or proven, because not everything meaningful comes with recognition. Not everything important is visible. Some things just exist in the space between people, and the moments that don't get recorded, and the quiet connections that no one else sees. That's where this lives, in that quiet space. And I think there's something beautiful about that, something honest, something real, because it's not about attention. It's not about being seen by everyone. It's about being seen by someone, even if it's just for a moment. And you were, even if you never know it, even if you never think about it again, even if it was just a passing thing for you, it wasn't for me, it stayed. And maybe that's the part people forget, that even the smallest things can leave the deepest marks, that even the quietest voices can carry the strongest echoes, that even the simplest words can mean more than they ever intended to, because meaning doesn't come from size or volume, it comes from truth. And truth has a way of finding its place, even in a single comment, even in a moment that almost didn't happen, even in something that could have been nothing, but wasn't.